First off, I'd like to welcome anyone that's joining us for the first time, as well as anyone that's familiar with our past webinar content. Just a note, if you are interested in learning more about lighting or controls, we have a variety of e-learning sessions that are pre-recorded and ready for you to watch on our Cree Lighting YouTube channel. Again, on-demand viewing anytime. With that, just a few things before we get started. We will be answering your questions you might have at the end of the webinar. You can see a Q&A box or a chat box. You can type your questions in there, and again, we'll be addressing them at the end. With that, I want to introduce your co-hosts today. From Cree Lighting, Ryan Loggins, Product Portfolio Manager for Industrial Lighting, Rob Paget, Staff Systems Engineer from Synapse Wireless, and Tom Hines, Director of Intelligent Lighting for Cree Lighting. Together, they're going to provide information on how you can incorporate wireless controls and unlock new level of advanced savings and productivity for industrial applications. Up first is Ryan, so I think we're ready to learn more.
Great, thank you, Danielle. So real quick, just wanted to give everybody a brief overview of the topics we'll be covering today. So we wanted to start off with just talking about one segment in particular within the light industrial market and kind of some of the current events that we're seeing, as well as the goals and challenges within those spaces. And then we'll talk specifically about how Synapse and the SimplySNAP solution combined with KBL can help work through some of the challenges that we see within these facilities, followed by a brief product overview, and then we want to tie it all together with an actual customer case study that was recently performed with one of our larger users being the Uline facilities. So I don't think it's a big surprise or a new phrase to say due to COVID for anything, and that actually applies with the what we're seeing on the lighter industrial side in terms of the new warehouse space, as well as logistical centers and distribution centers as well. And really what we're seeing within this space as a current trend is that with, of course, due to COVID, with more people staying home, there's been an uptick in e-commerce shopping. So because of that, we're actually seeing an impact or a higher demand for that warehouse and logistical space. You may not be aware, but typically when you've got an e-commerce provider, they're typically using about 3 times as much warehouse space because they're consolidating their inventory in those central locations versus having more of a traditional brick and mortar structure that would have their inventory spread out across multiple facilities or retail fronts. So with this, we do see a steady pipeline on the horizon. For new construction, we're looking somewhere at about 300 million square feet that's supposed to be planned over the next 3 years, which overall puts the industrial opportunity in terms of growth somewhere between a conservative 6 to 8% CAGR rate over that same time period as well. So with all these transitions, we do see the warehouse space, becoming more of a premium right now. And we would expect that, people are looking to utilize this and make it as productive as possible going forward. So what I wanted to talk about real quick is just to kind of talk about, some of the activities that are going in within these facilities. And throughout the rest of the presentation, what we're primarily going to focus on is the challenges and kind of the use cases that we would see for the Cree lighting fixtures combined with Synapse throughout the distribution centers, the warehouses, and in some cases, light manufacturing facilities due to the mixed uses that we typically find within these buildings. So depending on what's going on within the actual space, you can actually see quite a few different things occurring in terms of activity, which can actually drive the light levels that are needed. So if you're in a more of a material handling situation or a warehouse where you're just doing simple storage, these are going to require for less light levels than you would be if you get into some of the more complex activities where they're actually doing more exacting work, either final assembly pack up or some sort of lighter level production as well. So when we look at these spaces, we oftentimes you'll see some buildings are completely dedicated to each one of these types of activities, but more common than not, there's one area that is assigned a particular task, and then throughout the building you may have another area that's for storage, and then you've got pack up, and then finally you've got cross docking and final shipment being in the final area as well. So with all this variation, what it does is create different types of needs and ultimately flexibility that people are looking for out of their lighting systems. Without the ability to have flexibility, then really what your options are number one, you can overlight the facility with the biggest light possible because you've got it designed to the worst case, or you're looking at mixing and matching and kind of coming up with a more of custom lighting job to where you've got each segment or cell within the facility with the correct amount of light levels, which is very unlikely for these types of facilities. Excuse me. Get my slide to transition. I apologize. There it goes. So on top of these facilities, because of the different types of work as well, it creates a unique set of challenges that we're going to talk about as well, because it can vary from needing to be able to do critical tasks to simple tasks that we were just talking about. But we also start to see irregular and mixed use layouts as people are trying to get the most out of their buildings. But also, within a warehouse or a distribution center, these are normally going to be very wide and open spaces with higher mounting heights as well that can make, getting to the lighting and adding that flexibility a challenge within itself. And then ultimately, if you've got any type of light manufacturing or you've got machinery going on, that typically, in some cases, is going to, call for a higher voltage to be able to power that machinery. And then you've also got the added worry of transient or surge being on the line because that machinery is turning on and off throughout the day. And that could be not necessarily the heavy machinery, but even something as simply as an air compressor system could, result in, or a large pack-up machine could result in terms of having on and off fluctuations throughout the day. So even though these facilities are diverse and there's a lot of different activities that are going throughout them, throughout them, we find that a lot of their primary goals and their lighting needs are very similar. And ultimately, when you're in any type of facility like this, almost always their number one goal is to have a safe work environment and making sure that they are keeping their employees out of harm's way. Right after that, it's down to business, and they want to make sure that they're being as productive and as efficient and cranking out what they're there to do on a daily basis. And then ultimately employee morale as well, which kind of is a hidden one in some cases, but it leads directly back to having a more productive and safe environment. We find that the more incentivized or the more welcoming you make a facility, the more energized employees show up to work and actually are more productive because they're excited about the workspace that they work in. And ultimately that takes us to our lighting needs. So kind of table stakes at this point is making sure that we've got proper illumination and that we're delivering the right levels of light for the type of work that is being performed within the space, and that can be on both the horizontal as well as the vertical plane as well. So we need to make sure that if they've got high racks or obstructions, things along those lines, that we're properly lighting the surface area where the work is being performed. And that can tie back to productivity as well, in making sure that people are either assembling something correctly or they're picking the right materials from the shelf the first time rather than having to go back and do it again because of low light levels. And then obviously as people are making their transition into a lighting system that works better for the work that they're doing within their facility, energy savings is always a big piece of that in helping get to the faster payback to be able to return, make it a quicker return on the investment that they've made. And one of the quickest ways to do that obviously is by saving energy with the lower cost units that you see with combined LED and controls functionality. Code compliance. Again, a lot of people would love to go out and just, pay up simple LED lighting. But now, there are more rigorous codes, depending on where you're located throughout the US, that require you to do it a certain way and have a certain set of functionality to be able to make that lighting transition. Certainly on the new construction side, but also if you get more involved over a certain square footage into a more involved remodel job as well, that becomes a major factor. And then ultimately, everyone wants to be able to be comfortable within their space and make sure that they've got something that's going to last for a very long time, that gives them the flexibility to be able to configure their space, how they plan to use it, not only for the current situation, but for what they may grow into later on as we go. So that's why we wanted to talk to everyone today, was to kind of show you how the combination of the KBL with the SimplySNAP wireless controls can really address those needs and challenges within these various spaces that we're seeing today. So to walk us through a little bit more about what SimplySNAP is, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Paget, and he is going to walk us through some of those features and benefits that really make this such an awesome product. So Rob, you may need just a second to get your screen up and running.
All right, you guys hear and see my screen okay?
You got it?
All right. Well, thanks, Ryan, appreciate that. So again, my name is Rob Paget. I'm an engineer on our solutions engineering team here at Synapse Wireless. Over the past several years, I've worked closely with the Cree lighting team on the commissioning and support of a number of indoor high bay projects, including Uline, which Ryan's going to talk about a little bit later, going through that case study. We want to spend our time today taking a closer look at some real world examples where indoor customers, specifically in that high bay space, have found value in using SimplySNAP for lighting controls. The content here is going to be highly customer focused. All of the use cases we're going to cover are from real customers. So we want this to be as practical as possible so that when you walk away from this, you can see exactly where SimplySNAP is a great fit for these applications. And while my focus is going to be on high bays, Cree Lighting does have our controls available for site area lights, the OSQs. Brian, you may want to mute. I think they're still unmuted. And then also for parking structures with the IG, which Tom will mention, the other controls options with the Cree lights later at the end. But it makes it easy for you to add SimplySNAP to a number of different applications for the needs of your customers. Now, when we commission a site for a customer, early in the process, we interview them to find out more about the lighting needs of their facility. And there are two things I've learned from these interviews. Kind of like Ryan was mentioning, there are no two customers that are alike. Everyone has different needs in their space. And there's still also a lot of manual human intervention still involved in the control of lights. If you think about the last time you were in a warehouse, I grabbed this picture of a local Costco. When you look up, you see hundreds or even thousands of lights are in this large open environment. Well, those lights are connected to multiple circuits that are controlled at an electrical panel somewhere, or they may be controlled by a group of switches. In some cases, the people in management and operations, they're not communicating with each other, and those lights are just left on all of the time. Management may want to shut the lights off, but they don't know how or even where the switches are to do so. For the ones that do shut the lights off, they're relying on a human to shut the circuits off outside of those normal operating hours. And that's where we come in with SimplySNAP. We're helping bridge that gap between the company's energy goals and the day-to-day operations of the facility. We want to automate those dimming strategies, take that human element out, use sensors and scenes and schedules that are efficient, and they're going to save on energy usage, provide safer and more productive work environments. Now, from time to time, you may run into a customer who has a negative impression of controls, and some of that is based on past experience with other systems that have made big promises but failed to deliver. So how do we change that perspective? And I want to talk about the partnership we have with Cree Lighting and our approach to solving these problems for our customers. And it starts with the SimplySNAP embedded inside of the Cree Lighting luminaires. Cree Lighting, their manufacturing teams, I've been there in person, and seen it myself. They install the controls in the light, they test everything. You can see in this picture here, here's an example of our DC powered embedded controller that they're installing. And I'm going to hand this actually back to Ryan, let him chime in a little bit here about Cree Lighting's approach to doing integration and testing.
Yeah, and one of the things I would really just emphasize on kind of the end-of-the-line testing that we do when we're adding the SimplySNAP system is, we're already doing a lot of end-of-line testing for the standalone fixture in terms of making sure that, this fixture is delivering the correct lumens that's being ordered, as well as at the correct wattage, that it's the correct CCT as well as CRI, and that everything that the customer expects to get is coming off the line and that it works before it ever, is put into a package and leaves the factory. But what a lot of folks would do, in my opinion, is, when adding a new component such as SimplySNAP or another control system, is they would just add it on to what they already know that works. This is where Cree Lighting goes a little bit above and beyond some of the other competitors within the space, and that we're actually testing the wireless controls as well. So we make sure, again, the fixture is performing as expected, but it's also testing that wireless signal and making sure that when this fixture is received in the field, that it can make a connection to the gateway and it's ready to go out of the box without having to fool around with it in the field. So thank you, Rob.
Yeah, no problem. And so, I've seen in these projects I've worked on, that attention to detail Ryan talked through, that ensures that the customer right out of the box is going to have a good experience. And if you think about from like an installation perspective, all the electrical contractor has to do is install the lights, power it up. That's it. So there's nothing else to wire up. So that's going to reduce the installation costs and the headaches that are involved a lot of times with installing controls. Now, after the customer's powered up the lights, we've designed SimplySNAP so that we can get the lighting control up and running just in a matter of minutes. Even before the site is commissioned, a contractor on site can use the push buttons on the front of our central base station to control the lights. The wireless piece that we use, how does that work? Well, that is something we've developed. It's our own wireless mesh networking protocol that we started back in 2008. It's based on 802.15.4, but all of the messaging that's on the mesh network, the mechanism we use to discover and communicate with lights, that was all designed by our team here in Huntsville. And it's specifically tuned for lighting applications. And that is key. That's how we're able to support more devices per gateway, and why we have better range and how lights respond more quickly to commands than some of our competitors. As you can see from this video, Mike McConnell at Uline, so he's adjusting the dimming level for thousands of lights from his tablet from our user interface. Responds quickly. And I've seen this work in the indoor space, outdoor space, all different sizes and kinds of applications. It scales really well to meet the needs of just about any customer. So Cree has done the hard work of making sure those controllers are embedded. We've got that wireless piece that's running in the background, that customers don't even have to think about, it just works. The last piece of the puzzle is the user interface. So it has to be simple to use, has to also give the customer the flexibility to manage the system in whatever way meets the needs of the space. Like we're saying, it's that these are diverse areas where these controls are used. The culture at our company, we're fanatical about user experience. Everyone who's had a chance to use SimplySNAP firsthand, they love it. You can see I've got this video playing of the interface from my iPad. Our attention to our users is why we get the kinds of feedback you're going to see here on these next few slides. In our design process, we're bringing users into that. We're actually testing and prototyping new features and designs with our customers early in the development process. And that results in a product that when it's released, it's something that customers actually want to use. And I think that's a big distinction for us. I am one of the users of the system. I use it almost every day. It's just as intuitive and helpful for a power user like me as it is for a non-technical customer. And I'm trying to highlight that as much as I can throughout this presentation. You'll see lots of screenshots and videos so that you can get an idea or sort of feel what it looks like to use SimplySNAP. All right, so let's dive into those 6 real customer use cases that will hopefully help you connect the dots so you can see the value using SimplySNAP with Cree Lighting's High-Bays. So use case number 1, flexible occupancy control. I need to maximize the light output during production hours while maintaining my corporate sustainability goals. I'd like different dimming levels and timeout schedules for high traffic areas during operating hours versus on nights and weekends. One of the advantages of using SimplySNAP is that it's flexible in the way that it works with motion sensors. We talked earlier about circuit switch control, where a light switch or a relay panel is turning power on or off to a group of lights. If you think about the way occupancy sensors have been used in legacy wired controls environments, they do provide additional flexibility where individual lights are controlled by a motion sensor. The problem with that approach is it's not nearly flexible enough. The settings on each of the motion sensors are hardwired and can't be changed after the install. So the customer is stuck with whatever the hold time and the dimming levels that are configured on the sensors. Another problem is that the sensor is connected to every light, which adds additional cost. So you have to have a sensor per light, and it results in that popcorn effect. So each light is individually responding to occupancy and vacancy events. In SimplySNAP, a motion sensor is just a device on the network, regardless of which light it's connected to. Motion sensors, they can control any number of lights in the zone, regardless of the location. If you look at this example, this is from a Uline warehouse. And over here, we've got a sensor on each end of the aisle and one in the middle, instead of having one on every light. So if a fork truck comes down the aisle from either side, all of the lights in that zone are going to go to their configured occupancy dimming level. In addition to that strategic placement of occupancy sensors, the configurable hold times and dimming levels are done within SimplySNAP rather than on the sensor. So that gives the customer control of dimming and hold times that can change to align with the customer's operations schedule. In this example, you'll see most of the building here is made up of aisles. So this is a big warehouse, and they want to get those lights back down to their low dimming level as soon as possible after a fork truck has left the aisle. So during the day, after 5 minutes of inactivity, those lights are going to shut down to 50%. After hours, at nights and on weekends, they don't expect there to be any traffic. So if someone is in the facility, they want to get those lights off fast, get them into the off state instead of at 50% after 1 minute of inactivity. For higher traffic areas that may be adjacent to these aisles, those zones are programmed to return to their vacancy dimming after 20 minutes. So none of that is hard-coded. You can use scenes and schedules to change those values to meet the operational needs of the facilities based on whatever their schedule is. Now, let's take a look at this in action. You'll see here, we've got a schedule set up, and there's 2 zones. So there's this scene, all zones occupancy day. That's set to run at 6 a.m. And then all zones occupancy night, that's set to run at 8 p.m. Now these use the same hold times and dimming levels I mentioned on the previous slide. So if there's no one around at night, the nighttime scene gets applied, and you can see all of those lights in the aisle shut off. So I'm shooting this video from my iPhone. There's nobody around. And I'm out here, and these sensors are controlling the speed bays and shipping lanes. So again, this kind of demonstrates the beauty of you're not tied to that circuit anymore. Each of these lights can be set up in software-based zones to meet the needs of these aisles, and then this kind of speed-based shipping area is set up differently. So that gives you a ton of flexibility. If the customer has an emergency event, or they need to do some sort of maintenance after hours, and they just want to disable all the motion sensors and turn everything on, because it's all done in software, that's very easy to do. They just set up a scene, apply the on behavior to the whole system, and that effectively disables the motion sensors until the customer wishes to go back to that standard schedule. All right, use case number 2, local energy codes require us to automatically dim the lights down in areas where enough natural light is present. We have skylights, and we need to meet regulations, but we don't want to impact employee safety or operations. Controls makes a lot of sense in areas of North America with more stringent energy codes. Starting with DLC, in many cases, you can't even bid on a project if you're not DLC listed. It's kind of a basic requirement we regularly run into. We are listed on the DLC qualified product list for indoor and outdoor, and we've been working with DLC for years. Daylight harvesting is becoming more common as a code requirement in different parts of the US and Canada. When you think about daylight harvesting, a lot of people may have experience with it in an office environment. And those systems are closed loop systems where you have a sensor that's pointed down at the surface measuring the illuminance levels. The issue with that in high bays is you can't reliably measure the illuminance at 40 feet where the lights are installed. So the solution to that is to use an open loop, daylight harvesting system where the sensor is pointed at the natural light in a skylight or on a window, and then the sensor is continuously dimming groups of lights in that area while maintaining the designed illuminance in the space. I do have a picture here on the bottom left. This is our daylight sensor that we use in those daylight harvesting applications. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the hardware section. Now, here's a great visual of the daylight harvesting energy savings using SimplySNAP power. This is the graph in our system here on the right. I have two zones added here so you can see the side-by-side comparison. The graph in green, so this represents a zone of lights that is set up for occupancy. So you can see as people are coming into the facility, into the warehouse during the day, those lights are at their configured high dimming level. And then the blue line here, that represents occupancy and daylight harvesting. So as the sun is coming up in the facility, the power level for those lights is going down while still maintaining that illuminance level. Well, that's a 45% energy savings in that daylight zone combined with occupancy rather than just using occupancy. So that's a pretty powerful energy savings that affects the return on investment and the energy bill for the customer. Another thing, by having all of this data, is it's stored in SimplySNAP. Customer can use it and get access to it to get rebates. So you'll see there's this little download button in the upper right. They can export the power usage. They could do it by zone or from the entire system, and then get access to rebates. This customer was able to get $80,000 in rebates using the energy report from our system from one of their facilities. Use case number 3, task tuning. I need different light levels for different areas of the building based on the work in those areas. The controls need to be flexible enough to adjust if those needs change. Like we discussed in the occupancy use case, when you have these large buildings with open areas, there are oftentimes different people performing different kinds of tasks in those spaces. And these tasks may not all have the same lighting needs like Ryan covered. The customer in this example is a manufacturing plant. They've got technicians that are working on the manufacturing line adjacent to project managers who are working at computer workstations. So the project managers, they had a hard time seeing their computer screens when the lights were set to 100% dimming. In SimplySNAP, it was very easy to set up multiple zones with different dimming behaviors, and we call that task tuning. Customer puts that section of the factory where the workstations are at 50%, and actually, so they can set the scenes up however they want. In this case, they went ahead and did 100% and 50% for the workstations, and then they have 4 different dimming levels for the overhead areas. Now, let's say over time, if these workstations move to the other part of the building and they need to change their zones, it's very easy to do that, to move zones around. Each light is uniquely addressed in the system, and so you can put those lights in any number of zones in any location if the needs of the facility changes over time. Now, there still are times when a customer wants to push a button to control their lights. We do offer that level of control. If you look over here on the left, so this is someone logging into a system controlling their lights. But if you want that push button option, the example before where those workstations were set up, they actually have a switch, a 2-button switch installed near the workstation so that during the day, if for some reason they want to turn those lights back up to 100%, they can do that. So they have manual control, and it's just going to affect the lights in that area. It's not going to turn a whole circuit on or off. So it's all software based. You're no longer tied again to that circuit switch. And here you've got, you can't really see it, but it's behind here. There's another one of those wireless switches that's set up to control lights based on the needs of the facility and usage for the customer. Scalability. We're planning to expand many parts of our facility next year, nearly doubling the current shipping and receiving areas. Our lighting control system needs to be capable of working across our entire site, including parking lots. SimplySNAP can really handle just about any size project you can throw at it. The architecture was designed to scale. We don't have different systems for small customers or medium customers or large customers. And I'll talk towards the end a little bit more about the components that are involved, but basically it's just a gateway and lights. If you have a large site with multiple gateways and the customer wants to manage that system from a single user interface in SimplySNAP, it's very easy to do. You just add the cloud piece, and I'll talk about that more in a minute, but there's no additional hardware to purchase. If internet connectivity is a problem for a site, and there are definitely some customers who are concerned, they don't want their lighting connected to the internet, that's fine. The gateways can run locally, completely autonomously with no internet connection whatsoever. And I want to show you some examples of this. So we're going to look at 3 different customers, high-bay customers, and different setups that they've got, just to give you a different idea of how customers might use this in the real world. So over here, this is a floor plan showing the lighting layout from the customer. And then I grabbed a screenshot from the user interface so you can see what it looks like over here on the right. Now, this first manufacturing customer, this is an auto parts manufacturer. They've got 334 lights and sensors. It's a single building, wide open. They've got these manufacturing pods where we have zones set up right on top of those. And again, that can change over time, and the zones can be flexible with the facility. They're doing indoor only. It's locally managed, so they're not connected to a network. They are going to expand their capabilities and add SimplySNAP Power, which gives you that 5-year power aggregation in the cloud and gives you remote access. And when they decide to add that piece, they won't have to buy any additional hardware. We'll just have to turn that on. Second customer here, this is also manufacturing. Now, this is a facility that expanded over time. They now have 18 adjacent buildings that over decades they've added on to the facility. They have 961 lights, 79 motion sensors, and they really like using that unified schedule. The space, the needs in these buildings are different. They only have to go to one place to set that across multiple gateways. So they're using the cloud piece, SimplySNAP Illuminate as well. And they're also doing parking lots. So you got indoor and outdoor combination here. And then lastly, this is a distribution center, 3,000 lights, 500 motion sensors. You've got a number of daylight sensors. There's multiple gateways at this site, all managed together from a single user interface. You can see here, this is exactly what the customer sees when they log in. I'm going to show you a video here in a second, so you'll see what the interaction with that looks like. Now, they also have OSQs in the parking lot, and they're using OSQs in the wall pack. So you've got a good combination of KBLs, wall packs you'll see here, and out here in the parking lot, all managed from that same schedule. And in the local energy code here actually required that they dim the lights in the parking lot by 30% after hours. And so they were able to do that and again, get access to some rebates. So those are just 3 different examples of the different kinds of projects we can support in SimplySNAP. All right, 2 more use cases. Multisite, I have several locations with large lighting systems. I want fast and easy access to everything. I don't want separate systems with different usernames and passwords to remember. If you look at a company like Uline, they have distribution centers and warehouses all over North America. They have a standard configuration they like to use at each of their facility types, and warehouses and distribution centers have different needs. And the beauty of having SimplySNAP at each of the locations connected up to the cloud is that they can set up and manage the zones and schedules and scenes all from one place. And that's important to them because they have regional operations teams in place who manage more than one building. SimplySNAP Cloud gives them that built-in multi-site management tool, as you can see here in this video, that enables the operators to get in and out of sites quickly. They control the lights, they can update a schedule, troubleshoot any issues from anywhere in the US. It also gives them the ability to manage their own user accounts. So they have 19 users with various levels of access. If one of their 19 users forgets a password, they can easily reset it. They can also add and remove user accounts from the system easily. And from a troubleshooting perspective, SimplySNAP can also proactively notify those system managers of any problems detected. Now here you'll see, this is an example. We had a customer that a circuit went out, and so these 3 lights are tied to the same circuit. Someone flipped a breaker, and SimplySNAP sent them an email to proactively notify them of the issue. They actually had a facilities guy check the circuit, and he said, nope, it's on, everything's fine. And they knew that wasn't correct. The system was telling them, we're not communicating. So they went back to the facilities guy, and he ended up figuring out, yep, you're right, it was off. I was looking at the wrong place. They flipped the circuit back on, and I got everything back up and running. And our last use case, a very important one, I have an existing building automation system that's used to control other systems in my facility. I don't want to use multiple interfaces to run my day-to-day operations. I'm not a system integrator. For larger enterprises, warehouse and manufacturing customers, most of them are already going to have a building automation or management system in place that's controlling HVAC, air handlers, could be controlling a security system, maybe even other lighting controls. Having a lighting control system that can integrate into those existing systems is usually a must-have for those customers. We've designed SimplySNAP to play well with others. They can talk to those systems using standard protocols, BACnet or Modbus. If you look at this example here, this is a screenshot from Uline's Train building automation system, and they're monitoring the status of their buildings from within the train. Now, they had initially planned to use the schedule on the train and just apply scenes to SimplySNAP. However, they love the user interface so much, they decided to manage their lights from within SimplySNAP, and they're just using a train for monitoring purposes. There are some customers out there who want to do custom integration. The SimplySNAP API is a perfect fit for that. It's a programmable interface that allows third-party clients to develop their own communication path for controlling and monitoring their lights. We have a recent Cree lighting customer who uses SimplySNAP, but they already had their own custom energy management software developed in-house. And using their own software team, so they decided they wanted to integrate SimplySNAP into their energy dashboard using our API. So now they can monitor and control their KBLs along with their other energy resources from that same homegrown system. Now, Ryan mentioned the end-of-line testing. That same API that we're using to integrate in with these third-party systems is what Cree Lighting uses at their end of line to automate the testing of the controllers and the sensors, drivers, and inside the lights. That's it for the use cases. Just to recap those, we talked about the flexibility of network-based controls with occupancy sensors, using daylight harvesting to meet energy codes, get access to rebates and energy savings. That task-based dimming to improve productivity and give the customer the light levels they need to meet the use of their space. Scalability, projects of any sizes, indoor and outdoor. Multi-site management, if you've got multiple sites, you want to manage user accounts, or if you want to connect into a building automation system, we have those options. So I think it tells a pretty compelling story for the value of adding SimplySNAP for indoor projects, for whether it's a lighting retrofit or a new installation. So as we start to wrap things up, let's talk about those components that are involved in a SimplySNAP system. What would a customer purchase and how would it work? Every SimplySNAP install, you're going to have at least one gateway and some number of lights. So each gateway typically manages about 500 lights, and those lights could have sensors connected to them, motion sensors, some may or some may not. In this picture we have, this is our central base station, so there's two types of gateways you can get. I wanted to show this one. This is great for customers that want that push button control, so the 5 buttons are built in, and they can apply scenes right from the front. This can be managed locally or remotely over Wi-Fi, Ethernet, or cellular. And we use that remote cellular connection for most of our commissioning projects, even if they don't connect it to a network, so we can get into the customer site, set it up, and we can also use that for troubleshooting down the road. And then as far as that SimplySNAP interface, the user interface that we've highlighted here, that is controlled with pretty much any device that has a web browser. There's no server to install or app to download. You just need a PC, it could be a Mac, smartphone, tablet, whatever. As long as it's got a modern browser on it, you can connect in either to the gateway or to the cloud system from there. A few of the accessories we talked about, our BMS gateway, this is what enables us to connect into those BACnet and Modbus systems, those building automation systems. The middle here, that's the daylight sensor that you would put in your skylight or window. This also gives you the ability to add occupancy coverage in an area where that fixture-based occupancy sensor might not be able to cover. So that's another good option there. And then over here on the right, we have two variants of our wireless switch. There's a 2-button and an 8-button version, and that extends that push button functionality really anywhere in the facility as long as it's in range with a wireless network. And you can set up to 5 scenes per button for the customer. Now, if the gateways are able to connect online, either through the LAN or over the built-in cellular connection, they can add on our cloud service, SimplySNAP Illuminate. It doesn't require any additional hardware. It's extremely easy to use. You just go to simplysnap.com, enter your username and password, and then you'll see a list of your sites there. Select your site, and you're off and running. We do have a progressive web app you can download to your desktop or your mobile device. It's what I was using in the video earlier, where I was showing the multi-site management at Uline. And the other advantage, if you connect up to the cloud, is if you have a large site that has multiple gateways, you can manage all of it from a single user interface. Each gateway, like I said, can do typically about 500 lights. If you've got a site with several thousand lights, you're going to need more than one gateway. You can set up each gateway to run on its own, and that's perfectly fine. We have plenty of customers who do that, but if they want a single web address accessible from anywhere where they can manage those scenes and schedules and lights from one place, SimplySNAP Illuminate makes a lot of sense. And last but certainly not least, commissioning and support. We have 3 primary levels of commissioning to suit the needs of our customers. We do a ton of our projects remotely. Even if the customer doesn't have their gateway connected to the internet, we can activate the cellular modem, get into the site, set it up. We typically do require the customer to do some sort of validation. And if you've got a customer, I don't want them to have to touch anything, I just want you to train them on it, then we do have a smart hands option. And this is where we have a network of technicians all across the US that can act as our eyes and ears. So we would still commission remotely, but we would use them for validation. And if you as a lighting agent, you want to do that, you can sign up to be a smart hands technician, and that would give you the ability to learn more about SimplySNAP, helps you build a stronger relationship with your end user that could lead to more sales down the road. And it also gives you the opportunity to earn a few $100s. So that might be a good option. And then lastly, premium, if you want us to come on site, do turnkey, set everything up, train the customer on site, validate it all, then that's a good option for well. And we use that for some of our larger projects. There are plenty of systems out there that never have to be touched, but if a customer does need us, we're here to help. Our support and engineering teams, we're very responsive. As you can see from some of these comments from our customers, we love talking to our customers. The same customers are the same people here at Synapse that commission the system, we're also doing the support. So if a customer opens a ticket, they can ensure they're gonna talk to somebody who's an expert and be very receptive and responsive to the customer's problem. So if you have any questions, enter it into the webinar Q&A, we'll try to answer those at the end. You can reach out to Tom or Ryan at the end as well if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to us, there's our website. You can open a ticket, and we're happy to help in any way that we can. And so with that, I'll hand it back to Ryan. Let me stop my share.
Rob, while you're doing that, it's really great to see the amount of flexibility that's available with that Synapse SimplySNAP system. I think, everything you've gone through there, it really shows how easy it is to adapt to the varying needs from, application to application, from different projects within an application, and even for customers, from day to day, having that flexibility of how their business operates and how their lighting supports that business. You can give it options from standalone systems to cloud connected. I mean, it's a really versatile offering you have, and I'm excited as we work together over the past few years. It really is a testimony to how similar Synapse Wireless and Cree Lighting are in our intelligent lighting philosophies. It's all about being simple, being scalable, being secure, and being open to integrate with other systems. So certainly a great way to really enable us to as a team working together, deliver on some of those primary needs that Ryan had mentioned earlier on about safety and productivity and employee morale. And Ryan, if you want to go to that next slide, I think we're going to take just a couple moments here to just talk about some of the Cree lighting enabled products that are available today to you that have that pre-tested compatibility and in some cases factory installed options related to the SimplySNAP system. These 3 products today are our current offering. The KBL Series and IG Series are both products that are available with factory installed Synapse control. So what Rob was showing earlier and what Ryan was talking about, these are 2 great products where we're not only testing the performance of every product as it leaves our factory, but also making sure that the controls and the RF capability is just there and just right with every single product that's manufactured. And then our OSQ series is a series of area and flood lighting luminaires that has really enabled us to have more control through a 7-pin node. So Ryan, if you want to go back one to that IG slide, these 3 great products that we have here. Another great part about them, they're all built in Racine, Wisconsin. So a great product that's available, very close to our projects, to your projects. With the IG, beautiful fixture, really great low glare solution, variety of mounting options, variety of lumen levels and color temperatures to really help you deliver when there is parking. Especially, we talked about industrial, and we'll talk more about the KBL fixture in a second here. But let's not forget, often there are parking lots and area solutions that we need to deliver, and we can integrate, as Rob said, into one solution with Synapse, both indoor and outdoor. And this is also available, it's pictured there with a motion sensor, but this is available with and without a motion sensor for you with that SimplySNAP factory installed option. Ryan, if you want to hop to the next slide for us, we'll talk a little bit. So this is our OSQ series. So this is our area and flood luminaire. So even more optionality with this product line. You know, it's one of those things where you think about industrial applications, almost every single one of them is going to have a parking lot and have some need for area and flood lighting. So it's a great way, paired up with Synapse 7-pin twist lock control, to really bring that flexibility to the outdoor spaces and not just have them in the indoor spaces in those industrial applications. Again, a variety of mounting options, a variety of optics, variety of lumen levels, color temperatures, really a great way to pair flexibility of control with flexibility of products to make sure that we're delivering that right solution. And then last and certainly not least is our OSQ HO series of the OSQ. So very similar to OSQ, but giving you even more options around higher lumen levels to address a variety of mounting heights, some different applications that we may run into in the outdoor space where sometimes higher luminance levels are also required. So a great little suite of products that are available, factory installed, factory tested, factory qualified, and that's between both factories. All the factory testing that we do of these products, we share and collaborate with Synapse to make sure that we're representing the best solution to your customers, to our customers, on every project that these products are shipped to. And Ryan, do you want to take us through KBL and into the Uline case study?
Yeah, we can wrap up with that. You know, similar to what Tom was going over, you know, this is obviously something that's available today. We've got a number of actual test sites installed, and we're about to dive a little bit deeper into the Uline one that really started all of this off for us. But just wanted to highlight on the KBL, again, you know, we've done a lot of work on this series and the entire KBL family over the last year and a half to 2 years, where we've actually expanded out the lumen packages now to make sure that we're covering those various use cases that we were talking about. So if you've got lower mounting heights or even the higher mounting heights up to 40 plus feet, we have that available as well. And we've made sure that when we've had the SimplySNAP system integrated with the KBL, that, you know, we're able to still support the additional optionality. So if you've got a need for emergency battery pack and egress lighting, then we have that capability as well. And again, trying to make it as user-friendly or installer-friendly as possible, we've got the ability to mix and match, you know, whatever cord and plug option you would have for your facility in various lengths as well. So no matter what you're looking for, whether, you know, it's a hook and cord or if you need a pendant mount, the KBL is really offering more configurability in the wireless controls than what I think most people would see in the competitive offering that is available today. In terms of, you know, just being a high-performing LED luminaire on its own, again, you know, this is all the benefits of LED. So that energy savings piece that we talked about earlier, we are looking at an average of about 65% energy versus the traditional solutions. And then that's enhanced even further with the Synapse capabilities that Rob went through today. So it really is a powerful tool for the end user who's looking for, you know, code compliance as well as granular control at any size facility. So with that, I wanted to take just the last 2 minutes. I'm going to go through this pretty quick so we have some time for Q&A. But wanted to talk about, you know, the Uline opportunity that I mentioned earlier that really started this for us. And this was one of the, not the first, this was the second install that we did after a beta site that was a little bit smaller. But Lacey, Washington was a very powerful use case in that, you know, this was not only a large customer with an 800,000 square foot facility, but, you know, somebody that we have a longstanding relationship with. We have several thousands worth of fixtures with them, but they came to us, you know, needing the wireless controls to be able to meet that local Washington State energy code where Lacey is actually bound to. So with that, Washington State Code is kind of like Title 24, but it's harder, to say it the simplest way. But ultimately, what it does is it forces, kind of all the functionality and the bells and whistles that Synapse has, and kind of rolls them all into one single site. So between power density requirements, end-of-aisle cutoff, having reduction of lighting for both indoor and outdoor, and utilizing the dimming, the zones, and schedules. It really is kind of a higher level ask that I think would actually weed out some of the lower level players that are offering controls that are much more simple in terms of just on-off capability or simple dimming with the individual controllers as well. So a little bit about the Uline facility. This does have the higher mounting heights as well. So we're looking at a right around 34 feet for the above floor finish. And this was over 3,000 fixtures. And again, because we were looking for ultimate control without over designing it, we were strategic about where those occupancy sensors were actually used. And again, not having to put one on every fixture was an immediate cost savings as well. So out of the 3,000 lights, we were able to control all the zones and the various functionality that we're looking for, with only having to put a sensor on 450 of those actual units. So when we tied it all together, because again, one of the asks from Uline was, I want to make sure that we've got all of this controllable from a single pane of glass, and that includes both the outside as well as the inside. And then ultimately, I want to tie this into future locations and be able to have all that control at my fingertips. So at this site, we actually were able to integrate and use the KBL as well as the XSP. Did some customization on that end with Synapse help in terms of making that functionality work. And then OSQ with the twist lock 7-pin that Tom had spoke about earlier. So again, you can see the functionality, whereas it's just a small sidecar there on the KBL itself. That wireless card, compared with the smart driver that we're using, gives us all the functionality and customization to meet the customer's needs, as well as enhance their energy savings and give them another level of control that they've never seen before. So in terms of the architecture, again, just kind of putting another visual with it, all of this is running through the on-site controllers there and being able to be accessed from any web app or PC access point. So really what the end result on this is one very, very happy customer, and we're glad that we pulled it off. But now that we've pulled this off, this is something that we're able to scale and offer, for anybody who's looking for this functionality. But the KBL, it got us in the door because it's they've always been happy with just our high bay fixtures in general, due to the low glare and uniform light, and being able to put that higher level CRI light, where they need it, to make sure that they're actually providing accurate work the first time, and keeping their productivity numbers up. So at the end of the day, and with implementing this wireless control system with the LED fixture, they were able to meet the codes. They actually do have about a 500,000 annual savings worth of energy. And then on top of that, they've got the customization to where and the flexibility to be able to change their space around however they need going forward. So I think the proof is in, it better heard in their words. Their facilities manager, he can give testimony to, the employees that he's directly in charge of and how they show up and they're ready to work, having come from a facility with older light sources that, were much dimmer and not as bright. And then obviously Mike McConnell, our friend and partner, who is very pleased with, not only with the quality of light, but the functionality of the entire system, including the Synapse controls as well. So we're very happy and proud of what we've done with this offering, and I hope you guys have seen the value as well. So with that, I'll thank you again, and we'll open it up to Q&A. Danielle, if you'd like to take back the controls and read out anything that may have come over while we were presenting today.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Rob, Tom, and Ryan, for your presentation. is now time for the attendees to ask questions. Feel free to enter anything that you might want to know more about in the chat window or the Q&A panel, and we can get started. First question I got coming in, can we provide a competitive cost analysis to a IBG with N-Light Air?
Hey, Danielle, this is
So
Tom. I think we answered that we already answered that one in the Q&A. We'll follow up with the person that asked that question and help them out.
Okay, sorry about that. And then the next one comes from Pat to an existing KBL HXB or CXB installation.
Yeah, I can take that one as well. So the really good news on that question is we were very close to being able to say yes. So working with Synapse, they are about to launch a new product, a new retrofit product called the DIM10-220 that enables us to add that Synapse intelligence and control to virtually any 0 to 10 volt dimmable product as a retrofit. So whether that's at the time of project installation or going back to existing sites that maybe didn't have controls and we want to layer in controls as a follow-on option, that's going to be available for us very soon. There is some preliminary information available on Synapse's website today. It's at synapsewireless.com. But if you search Synapse DIM10 in the Google machine, it's a really easy way to find that spec sheet. I can actually reach out, so I see who asked that question. I can reach out and send you that link as well. And Rob, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add on that new product for Synapse.
No, I think you pretty much covered it. So it's a great fit for those retrofits. It has that nipple connector on there and can attach right on.
All right, thanks. The next question for Ryan, are there any solutions for 480 volt?
So good question. It's kind of like you're looking into the future again. So we do not have the higher voltage with Synapse wireless controls on the KBL today, but that is something that we are working on actually implementing and making sure that all of our end-of-line tests, et cetera, and development is in place to support. In fact, we're actually about to actually do our beta site with that, expected early 2021. So we do expect to have the 480 volt and wireless controls available on the KBL probably by February. And then we do also anticipate shortly thereafter to have a high voltage TL7 twist lock available as well that would work with the OSQ offering that Tom covered earlier.
Just a reminder, if you have a question, you can feel free to enter them into the Q&A panel or the chat window.
Hey, Danielle, while we wait for folks to maybe type their questions in, I had a question for you. On the Uline case study, we did a video case study for that, didn't we? Is that available online?
We do have a video case study, and it is available on our creelighting.com website. You can find it under applications and go into the industrial warehouses area and find it through that way, or you can find it right from the homepage. There's a web banner that's focused on Uline, and click on learn more to go to that case study page. All right, I don't see any more questions at this time, but again, I want to thank our presenters today. Rob from Synapse, Ryan and Tom from Cree Lighting. Thank you so much for providing information more about Synapse controls with Cree Lighting Solutions.